Are you copying off of each other?
Oh, what's that? I can't read my notes.
Oh, sorry, you're punching here. I'm like, I haven't got into the marketing meeting because I don't think it's like fruit.
Yeah, no, they're all put it on hours, right? And usually they tend to be recorded, you just have emails, so like, it's not really necessary, especially if you don't like have something necessarily to talk about, but yeah. I mean, you're gonna work on the fly, right?
Were you at ALA, Steenz? Steenz. Can you hear me?
Did you say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still waiting on Bianca. Once
Did
Bianca.
you didn't go to ALA, right?
No, I didn't. Nope, I didn't. I should have though, considering it was in Chicago, so it's not like it was that far.
Still far.
But I heard it was great. A lot of people had a good time this year.
Yeah, I was supposed to do it in 2020, but I've never been able to
Have you applied for one of their tables?
Yeah, I've just been so broke, you know.
Yeah. 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 I think that the table itself may be free, but you know, everything else, getting there, lodging, books.
Well, yeah, it's like 5 days or something like that. And
it is, it's very long. Yeah.
So
it's long. And that's why it's like with shows like Emerald City and New York Comic Con, they're like always hardest for me to go to because they just take up so much time, you know?
yeah, I'm done with Read Pop.
Yeah.
Unless they fly me out.
Oh, okay, great. FYI, we are live on our YouTube channel as we wait for Bianca to arrive.
Oh, okay, good. I mean, I love Read Pop. I would do it again, pay all the money I can to. I think they know. I've not been shy about.
Yeah. Okay, looks like Bianca is on their way. Excellent.
Excellent.
Hooray. I. I just gave you all that.
I will work on Gil while we wait.
Yeah, might as well get some work done.
It. Awesome. Oh yeah, I'm not sure how this goes. It's a fast. It's the baby, so this is everything. So let's have just five. This is. Which means should be solution secondary. Now we're touching it, other than it's not. If you have a quiz that's finished, find me in the back. I want to do that, it would probably make it easier. Yeah, that's my favorite. I will end this impression.
Keep it at the top. Dream.
Good drink.
Acceptable for the Zoom chat, so hopefully.
I got it.
Did it work? Cause I had to manually type it.
Oh, I didn't check. Let me click through. Nope.
Okay. Well, what did I mess up? I will solve this. Sure.
Let's see. Oh, you missed files dot.
Yeah.
Yep.
We don't have any dummy coming with this one. Bias. E, X.
All right, trying now. Nope. Let me see. What is the difference here?
I had HTTPS // :
Yeah,
That's the link that I typed out.
it was, yeah.
Weird.
It is a very cute error message. So great.
Now the error message is broken.
Oh, wait a second. I think I missed something. No, I did. Yeah, who can say?
A file C.
Okay, well, we'll keep working on it in the meantime. Okay, well, hi guys. How's everyone doing today? Solid, staying cool. It's very hot. It's very hot. None of us should really be outside, to be honest. Luckily, we're inside with air conditioning. Love it here. So it is the third class of Comics University. Today we are talking about syndicated comics in the digital age. We're gonna have 4 syndicated cartoonists talk about their experience doing comics for newspapers. That the guests are me, Steenz, hello. I'm one of the syndicated creators, thank you guys. Yeah, and then we've got Supr Dee here. Hello.
Hello.
We've also got Henry Barajas. Yes. And then on their way is Bianca Xunise as well. So yeah, well, yeah, do another clap. Yeah. Okay, great. So today, oh, look who it is. It's Bianca. Hi, Bianca.
Hi.
We just started introductions, so this is
Hey,
perfect timing.
perfect time.
Yeah. Okay, so you got pop quizzes. If you haven't finished that, you can finish that during class. Just give it a wave and one of the slides people will come over and take it from you. Because remember, for every question you get right, you get $1. You get a Betty's Bucks that you can use today. Bye, Bianca. I'm sure they'll come back. Yeah, so you can use that today and today only. So make sure to buy something fun, be it a drink, a sticker, a book. Well, next week we will not be having class. We are in summer break. So yeah, after the 8th, we'll come back and we'll do 3 more classes to round out Comics University for the season. If you have missed any classes, you can get extra credit by going to the Slice fundraiser event, which is on July 18th. We'll love to see you there. We've got trivia, we've got a big raffle, we've got a drag performance, and tickets are only $10. We would really appreciate it if you show up. Okay, and then you can also go to the July Sip and Scribe, which is on July 25th. So you have some options to get your extra credit points before the end of the season. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna share my screen because I've got a little presentation over here. Okay. All right, I'll move this over here. Okay, so we're talking about syndicated comics, newspaper strips in the digital age. So I'm going to have everyone kind of introduce themselves and talk about who you are, what comic you work on, and how you ended up making this comic. How did you get this gig? How long you been working on it? So first up, we got Bianca. All right, tell us a little bit about yourself, Bianca.
Hey y'all, so I'm Bianca Xunise. A little bit about myself. Well, I love comics. I love drawing comics. I I always try to write stories. Like, I mean, I guess I could read my bio here. I'm an American cartoonist, illustrator, self-described, goth of color. My work is nationally syndicated through Chix comic strip, and my latest book is Punk Rock Karaoke. I was trying to see if I had one.
We have a
recently.
copy of Punk Rock Karaoke. We want to wave it. Sarah, do you want to grab it? It's right on the side there. Yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
next to
there you
my
go.
Juno Birch drag queen. Let's see. I always try to write stories about misfits. That's always been sort of my goal in my work, is to kind of just like make work that's like unusual and absurd. Okay, so here's some of my examples of my six chick strips, since we're talking about syndicated comics and newspaper comics. So here to the left, that's one of my Halloween comics that I created about sort of the gosh, I don't know what word I should use here, but sort of like the aesthetification of subcultures and how they're becoming more about aesthetics than the movements in which they represent. And then we have like technology killing the planet. And these is totally funny, funny works, funniest comics you've ever have read. We can swipe here. Um, is this money gonna help build communities, right? No, said Uncle Sam, which also we're right on the cusp of America's birth, just a few days away. So that feels perfectly perfect timing to share that comic. And then one of my favorites here, which is also like another Halloween comic, because Halloween, my Halloween strips, um, so my strip comes out every Tuesday with six chicks. There's six illustrators. I'm the Tuesday chick, and then we switch off on Sundays. But Halloween, and I actually yesterday I was working on like my summer arc, but Halloween is also like another arc I like to do, just like have a little fun and play with themes. Because since it is like a one panel strip, it is hard to sort of like build a narrative story, so I have to stick with these gags, but this one's my favorite. I'm starting to feel like perhaps I'm the real victim here. I feel like these comics sort of reflect one another. Again, perfect timing for the holiday season. Was there more here? I think there's one more.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, this is just what I was doing right now before I came on. I am on the top floor. It is like 100 degrees in my apartment, and I've been cooling off down the street watching the game. And so, but before I came here, I was eating hot wings, and I'm gonna order whichever's gonna hurt my stomach the most, because I actually just ate hot wings, a cheesesteak, jalapeno poppers, and the waiter forgot to bring me my onion rings, and I think like maybe he was trying to save my life, and a Sprite. The Sprite makes my stomach feel better. So, and then how silly of me to ever let this wall down. I am, despite my work being autobiographical and very personal in real life, I'm kind of like very like reserved and kind of keep my personal life to myself. And when I do open up to people, and then I'm just like, I'm like, I feel like comics for me, and maybe other artists and writers feel this way. It's sort of like it's a way for me to express myself and share my life, but also still kind of have a wall up. You can learn about me through this, but I'm gonna hide in my little rat hole and instead of being out in the world. So
Yeah, great. Okay, Henry, you want to talk a little bit about the work that you do?
Sure. I am Henry Barajas. I am from Tucson, Arizona. I feel like I say that 10 times a day. But I currently reside in Los Angeles, and I have been, the reason was to come out to LA and be in comics. You don't necessarily have to do that. Obviously, everyone on this call is in different parts of the world, so um I was very lucky that I've been able to make comics and do stuff with Image and Top Cow. La Voz de Mayo, the Rambo. It's a graphic novel about my great grandfather who was a World War II veteran and a Chicano activist. My new series, Death to Pachuco, deals with Chicano history that it revolves around the Sleepy Lagoon murder trial and the Zoot Suit riots, which a lot of people aren't familiar with. It's a 5-day civil war between the Mexican community and the U.S. sailors. It wasn't until the Black community had came in and assisted the Mexican community that put an end to all of it. So I try to talk about things that I'm passionate about in comics. And in 2022, I was offered the chance to pitch for Gil Thorp, which is a long-time syndicated comic strip that's been going on since 1958, originally created by Jack Brill. I was given this opportunity because my predecessor, after 17 years, decided to step down. And the first person I called when this all was happening was Steenz, because Steenz had already had experience going into a legacy comic strip. I unfortunately refuse to draw under any circumstances. People have started, I stopped saying I can't draw because every artist I know says, well, you can draw and you can learn how to draw. And I just refuse to learn. But I can color. I took over coloring duties on Gil, and I took over lettering duties. So I write, I letter, and I color. So I feel very lucky. I do love this. I'm assuming the class can see this page here, which
Yeah.
is my favorite picture of Gil. He is very much the Wonder Bread, um, like man that we all know who has been in our lives in one beautiful way or another, who has encouraged us through sports to be who we are and to do what we can in this life. I wanted to bring attention to this strip in particular. Originally I was working with Rod Wiggum until he retired 2 years ago. That's when I called Steenz. I was like, "Hey Steenz, do you want to do another strip?" And Steenz hung up on me. And but the best advice Steenz said was try to find someone you can work with for a long time, and Rachel Merrill stepped up to the plate. Um, this is our most viral strip. It ran on the 4th of July. I wanted to talk about the things that kids were facing a year ago. Like this happened last year for like we're talking about kids having school lunch debt. Trans kids are getting banned from playing sports, which yesterday happened. And books are being banned, and it's not an conducive environment for young minds, unfortunately. And it has become such what took me 10 minutes to write, what took Rachel a few hours to draw. There is a color version, but I appreciate this version better because it's all black and white, like the Stankonia Outcast album. But all the kids in that room are probably too young to know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know about
Um,
that.
I love
um,
that.
yeah, so this is kind of indicative of kind of the comics I want to talk about and the things I want to do. At the end of the day, this is a licensed well, not a license. This is a the Tribune content agency owns Gil Thorp. I do not own Gil Thorp. So I have tremendous liberties to with this comic, and I'm very grateful that they have not shied away from the more controversial aspects. The reader ship for this strip is from folks that have been reading since the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, so a lot of their mentalities haven't changed. Thankfully, Tribune sees the value in talking about relevant issues that are happening that are conversations are being had in the newspapers that they're run in. You can't the hottest topic in sports right now is trans athletes. Even though there's a fraction of the amount of them, there's a lot of emphasis on whether they can play or not. So that's why I introduced I have two new trans athletes in Gil Thorpe and multiple people of color, which the strip has always lacked. And originally, Jack Brill talked about uh, anti-hate, body dysmorphia. He talked about anti-Semitism and gay people. But I hope that in the time that I've been able to write Gil Thorpe and continue to, I get to address the more topical things that I care about.
Nice. Great. Thank you, Henry. All right, Dee.
Hi, so I'm Dee, known as Supr Dee. That's my pen name all over the place. I create the comic strip Rosebuds with King Features, and uh, I've been working on it. Technically, I've been working on the strip for about 6 years now, but it's been syndicated for about 2.5. I got my start very, very early on as a teenager. I grew up in a sundown town that practiced segregation, and me and my family were the only black family living there. And growing up, I really didn't have friends. I really had struggled making, communicating, and connecting with people. And I discovered Garfield this way. This was a way for me to learn about. For some odd reason, I found inspiration in this guy who's a terrible influence on everyone. But I found, he's fat, he's lazy, kicks Odie off the table, ships Nermal to Abu Dhabi. And I fell in love with that. I love that he loved who he was and he was okay with himself and didn't want to change himself for anybody. So in a twisted change of fate, I found inspiration of trying to be okay with myself and learning about who I am. And I learned to grow a love for comics that way. I once made a comic strip of Luigi going camping, and Booze were pranking him all night. And I shared it with a friend who laughed so hard he fell out of his desk, red in the face, tears running down his eyes. The downside was he had asthma, so almost made a friend die laughing in third grade. But it was at that moment I learned how to, I made someone smile by something I did rather than what I looked like. And so that point in time, I wanted to make people smile through comics. And so this has been my chain of evolution. I grew up just wanting that single mission of I wanted to make comics that made me happy, that made other people happy, brought a little smile to their faces. I got my start in 2015 with my first comic strip, Life with Karami. Garfield creator Jim Davis helped me get that comic into our local newspapers as a start for me to learn
No
about
way. That's
how
amazing.
the ins and outs of cartooning. Yeah, yeah. I owe a lot to Jim and Garfield, and so I wanted to. He wanted me this. Helped me with this opportunity because he thought that it would be a perfect learning opportunity for me. That regardless of what I did with myself, if I made comic strips forever or if I went out and did something else, that this would be an opportunity for me to learn more about myself and learn about how to proceed forward. And so that love of syndicated comics has stuck with me all this time to where now I'm making, a full-on internationally syndicated comic strip with Rosebuds.
Incredible. Love that. what a pull
That
to
makes
have.
me want to cry. That
I
is so
know.
beautiful.
To be like, oh yeah, Jim Davis helped me out. No,
You know, I try not to say, like, I really try to make sure I don't say that, like, if it's a bragging sort of thing. But you know, I grew up.
You should absolutely brag about that, man.
I
That's
I grew up. Garfield was no like so. I'm born, based, and live in Indiana, and everyone who knows Indiana knows that Garfield has originated here,
yeah.
and that's something that I grew up with. Like these guys were hometown heroes. Like they lived 40 minutes away from me.
Ugh.
That they're just making this internationally, icon, and they still kept their humble beginnings here, like in Muncie, Indiana. And I always found that so inspiring that he was able to make something out of nothing. He was a farm boy, uh, you know, like 40 minutes away from Muncie, and was able to just do all this. And I always found that inspiring. So I always felt like, if he could do it, I could do it too. And so to be able to, befriend him and learn about the ins and outs, being mentored by his Garfield artists and stuff, it's all been very sweet. And it's really helped and inspired me a lot to keep going with what I'm doing.
I love it. You have a great mentor. Oh yeah, wow. I was just like so enamored with your speaking. I like didn't even show your slides. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. So Rosebuds is
Yeah, talk about Rosebuds.
Rosebuds is a comic strip about three sisters, Rosa, Maria, and Maricela, and just their sibling antics in their daily lives with each other. And so it's a very heartfelt comic strip. It has a lot of slapstick humor because I really love slapstick comedy and things of that nature. And so, but the real central heart of the comic is that their everlasting love with each other and just their fun, different dynamics with each other. Rosa's the oldest, who's taking care of her younger sister. She's kind of a uh, super giant with inhuman strength, a real big fish in a small pond type of woman that just doesn't really know how to live in a world that really doesn't accept her. And so she's in it to really take care of her sisters and make sure that they live the best lives that they have. We're learning more about her as time goes on. The middle sister Maria, she is the clown. She has a severe case of middle child syndrome that has granted her with Toon Force. So silly slapstick stuff typically happens to her. She's a bit of an egotist and has loves horror, loves cryptids. She wants to eventually find like Bigfoot in a big and tall store. Uh, but she has a really good heart. She really cares for her sisters, even if she might seem to put herself first before everyone else, but she will always be there for her sisters. And then Marcel's the youngest one. She's the one that wears bunny ears. She's a child prodigy, has a real affinity for snacks and food of all types. She's an optimistic one, brings the happiness out of everyone, and just wants to brighten people's day with a smile. She's often the where Maria has street smarts, Marcella has book smarts, so she's often the subject of Maria's constant uh, pranks and tricks and stuff, and is often the one that kind of helps Rosa open up a little bit more and just brings a little bit of happiness in her life as well. So each one of them has their own strengths and weaknesses that each of them also help benefit from each other.
Great. I love it.
So yeah.
Okay. There's also Steenz. That's me. Hi.
I'm Steenz.
So I live here in St. Louis and I'm a cartoonist. I do the syndicated strip Heart of the City, and I also do other graphic novels as well. My latest one was called Side Quest, a visual history of role-playing games, of tabletop role-playing games. And I also teach. I teach at Webster. I teach at SVA in New York. I also teach at Comics University, which you guys are at as we speak. And I'm also board president of Slice, the St. Louis Independent Comics Expo. So I started doing making comics when I was very young. I think I was 7 when I made my first comic, the red eye killer whale. It's a whale that can go on land, so that's why it's so terrifying. But yeah, I've been doing different kinds of like illustrations, and I went to school for art, and I was doing my own like mini comics. I made a fan comic for Encyclopedia Brown that I loved. And I also edited a lot of comics. I was an editor at Lion Forge. I'm also a editor for small publishers as well. And by doing editorial, you are very focused when it comes to like time management, because you have to get your books out on time, and you have to make sure that everyone is doing their work on time, because everyone is connected in the process of making comics. And one of the bigger projects that I did was a role-playing magazine. And in the magazine, I was coordinating 10 different artists and writers per issue. So it took a lot of organization. And I was at SPX one year, and an editor found me and was like, hey, you take established characters and you make them into for a new audience, and you are very, very organized. Would you be interested in doing syndicated strips? And I had grown up reading newspaper strips. For a while, I would always tell people that a lot of people's first comics are the comics you read in newspapers, you know? And so I was like, yeah, I want to give it a try. So Mark Tatuli did the series Heart of the City, started it in 1999 or whatever year Phantom Menace came out. I don't remember. And I just know that it's that because the very first storyline that he did was laughing about how ridiculous Phantom of the Menace is going to be. So he wanted to retire after 21 years of doing a daily strip, which I get, that's grueling work. And so they asked me if I wanted to continue the series. Since he didn't want to end it and close it off completely, he wanted it to sell it to the syndicate so that they can do something else with it. And so they asked me to take over. And so I have been doing Heart of the City since 2020. So I love it. It's about these 4 kids who live in Philly. They live in Philly because that's where they live. That's just where it started, and I didn't want to move them to St. Louis. They live in Philadelphia. And I'm on like the Philadelphia subreddit all the time. All the time. I need, the information. So yeah, it's about these kids. They're middle schoolers and they're going through changes and figuring out who they are as people. Elementary school is all about like, how do I be a person? And middle school is like, well, who am I? What kind of person am I going to be? And so a lot of the stories revolve around them changing and figuring out new things and getting into silly shenanigans, the kind of shenanigans that I would get into when I was in middle school, like sneaking into movie theaters and stuff like that. So yeah, I love it. It's a daily strip, and I do all of it. So writing, illustrating, coloring, lettering. The only thing I actually don't color, I don't color the dailies because it is there are Andrews McMeel's IP. I think they were like generous to be like, we can color it for you. We have a department for that, which was really nice. And I'm really spoiled now. So I hate coloring, but it's got to be done. So I do it on the Sundays. So yeah, great. All right, I'm gonna move us back to gallery mode here. Let me get this out the way. Let me make this nice and big. Okay, great. So we're all here. So we talked about how we got started. I would be really interested to hear from you guys on how you prepared for the life of being a newspaper comic artist. What were you told what you can and can't do? Were you given guidelines on what to expect? Did they prepare you for hate mail at all? What was that first year or first experience like for you guys? Henry, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm lucky that I was born when I was born, so that my you know, I grew up on the internet. You know, I grew up on AOL chat rooms and Yahoo chat messenger boards and stuff. So I have a tolerance and exo digital skeleton when it comes to the way people interact
Mm.
anonymously on the internet. And at first, people were reserved and excited, and then when they saw I was introducing a trans character within 2 months and talking about mass shootings, and it was clear that our you know, philosophies didn't align with some of the original readers. So there was no coaching or any warning as far as what to expect. I guess they had, I don't know if they cared or they knew I'd be able to, you know, navigate through that. But yeah, so I feel like I feel lucky in that respect that I can have this, I can go on the internet, see the negative things, and it doesn't impact me all that much. It's like that episode of The Office where Creed says, "You could say whatever you want to me," and they all start being honest, and then he runs away and cries in the stairways. It's kind of like, no, I'm kidding, but like there is like a learning curve of like your life, my life, you know, is dedicated to Gil, and my I'm always thinking of new ideas and things to do something with to something I don't own. That's why, you know, whenever I do these things, I make it a point to talk about the stuff I do own and the things that I'm very passionate about. But I give the same you know, things to Gil that I would give anything else. So I love the strip, and I hope to do it for 18 years. I want to break the record.
That's what I want to do for mine as well. I got to do 22 years since
Oh my
March 20 did
gosh.
21. I
Well, you
know.
have 14 years. I can't believe it's been since 2020. That's
I
amazing.
know. I'm already in 2026, so I might be able to do it.
I think so. I mean, I do want to mention, I just love that you have Dilbert's spot, and
Yeah.
it's
Love
just
love
people
to
don't know
stick
about
it
that.
to him. Love to stick it to racist. Uh-huh. Speaking of racists, Bianca, do you want to talk about your experience? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Okay.
Um, oh, so yeah, I guess like, well, rephrase the question again because I know we're kind of
Yeah,
talking
I
about
just
different
wanted to know
things.
about like your onboarding process, essentially, when you
Okay.
first started, because this job isn't as simple as, make the book, get on out of here, it's a long
Yeah.
game, the
Yeah.
situation.
Um, Yeah, I mean, my onboarding process was kind of like we trust you. Like, you guys kind of talked a little bit about like how you got started within this, and I'll back up and talk a little bit about that. So,
Yeah.
when King Features asked me to be part of Six Chicks, before that, I got asked to do a Popeye comic for I don't remember what year of anniversary it was for Popeye. I know it was a number I couldn't believe. Like it was somewhere between like 70 and 90 years of Popeye. And it was like, add your name to the hat. So I did that Popeye comic and it was really well received. It was an olive oil comic because I stand olive oil. And it was like a joke on like the Great British Bake Off, but it was the Great Spinach Bake Off. And she uses spinach to make this like really juicy chocolate cake that they're like, yay. And of course it has Wimpy in it because he's gonna eat it. But they really enjoyed that, and they kind of just like saw that I was like in a place creatively. So when I got put on the Six Chicks, before that I was actually in a development deal with Andrews McNeil to start my own strip. I was in that for about 3 years. We couldn't quite get it right, and that was kind of like a devastating blow. And I thought, like, you know what, maybe newspaper comics isn't for me. And then this came up just by way of a tweet. My I don't believe that if they are still at King Features, they're not there as often as they used to be back in the day. But it was T Foreigner who saw my tweet and was like, my tweet was basically, I'm tired of constantly writing about Black tragedy. I was doing a lot of political journalism for the Nib, the Washington Post, other different news outlets, where I was specifically like talking about different community things, different political comics. And after a while, although as an artist, I feel like that's really what sort of started to drive me as a writer. Um, if we back up even further, my first column was on this website that is no longer around called Hello Giggles. This was in 2015. It was owned by Zoe Deschanel and Sophia Rossi. And it was like a women's website. It was like zany. It was like a goofier Jezebel. Like we're silly over here. And like a lot of my comics were just like, it's fall, it's time to get your pumpkin spice, or like when your skinny jeans don't fit. Like it wasn't like work that it was like stuff that you was through the Tumblr era, so it was stuff that just like reblogged well on Tumblr, things like that. But it wasn't meaningful for me. And I started writing work that kind of was like, let me push myself as an artist. And I had been doing that for about 5 years. And yeah, it really started to kind of like, I'm glad I'm doing the work, but also like I need a reprieve. I need space to be able to explore those themes, but then also like, have a laugh and tell a joke and do a bit and be corny and be silly and be a full rounded person than just someone that everyone turned to. It's just like, hey, somebody was murdered by the state. You want to write about it? And I'm just like, not particularly, not this time.
Yeah.
Because at first it definitely felt like it started to sort of add up after all, just like how many times do I have to keep writing this comic before it's just like stop killing us like that. What more can I say? Um, and so I had the opportunity to kind of go to six chicks, and then similar to everyone else, an artist retired, and you kind of get to slink into that slot, and you get these comic roles out of people's like cold dead hands. You kind of have to like pry them off like a Necromericon, and you get to be part, you get to play ball, and I'm excited with these artists that I get to work with because a lot of them have done like really incredible um like work in both like activism and politics and feminism and like really cool like underground punk stuff. One of the original founders of Six Chicks, Isabel Rotten, we did a panel together at Mocha in 2025, which was really wonderful. I got a chance. We don't really get to see each other. We don't really get to work with each other. We kind of all just do our own thing, which is okay. Sometimes I wish that we worked together a little bit more. It kind of reflects a little bit like being a teaching artist too, as a comics artist. Like the teachers, we don't really come together as teachers, and I'm just like, I want to see you guys. I want to like let's build community. I'm always about that. I always want to like be with my peers. But she's always like sending me like punk stuff that she finds. She's like an older punk, so it's kind of cool when you realize that a lot of people who make this work, you might have not even noticed in sort of like the slice of life or every day that these stories, these super strips tell, that they're actually like more aligned with you in more ways than you would originally think. But in terms of like feedback, I had a viral comic go in 2020. I didn't post in the slides, but it's forever relevant, where there was a black person wearing a mask, and then there was a white person and they were wearing a shirt that says I can't breathe, and then a white person comes up to him and says, if you can't breathe, then why don't you take that silly mask off? And that the world didn't like that story, and came for me, and my haters remain. They pay my bills. They all hit subscribe to you know, King Features, Comics Kingdom, and they've been commenting on my comments for 6 years now. But again, you gotta pay for these subscriptions. So I'm just like, hate or not, I still get paid. So let's go. And the other day I got a really great comment that my readers are worried that I'm depressed. And I'm like, that is true. I thought that was part of the job, was being sad. I thought all artists were sad, so my bad.
Yeah, the being able to like see the comments on every strip is really interesting because when you're doing a book, you don't really know what people think of it until after they've read the book, they go to the book signing and they talk to you about the book. But with syndicated strips that are online, they'll let you know every day.
Every day.
And it's really interesting. I don't read the comments on mine because I don't need to know. It's none of my business. And so my spouse reads them for me, and he'll let me know if there's like anything interesting, like, oh, someone saw the visual joke that you did, or um, stuff like that. And he has told me that all of the people who hated Heart of the City when I took over are still reading it. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'll take it, I guess.
You're still here, dude. So I mean, like, hey, I'm glad, passion is passion, you're
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, the onboarding for me was I was a little frustrated because I am a Virgo rising, which is type A. And I didn't get like what should my file names be? What do you want it to
okay.
be?
Yeah.
Um, what about the sizing for Sundays? You just changed them. Which one do you want me to use? How do I know which speech balloons to use? Where am I uploading this stuff? It's like very simple, the kind of like stuff that you would see in like an onboarding packet, they don't have. And I remember asking my editor, why don't you have this? And they were like, no one new comes in. And that's the case, you've got
Yeah, you have
artists
to
who are,
die
you have
or
to die
retire.
first, and then someone can take your spot. So there just weren't enough new creators that they needed an official onboarding process. And I was like, I'm not even gonna, my first thought was, well, I'll make one for you because this is crazy. And then I was like, that's not my job. This is literally not my job.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the one thing that that did help me with getting used to it was the first thing is my editor told me it's a grueling job, doing a daily strip every single day. Um, it's not easy, and we're not going to pretend that it's easy, and I appreciated that they were very forthcoming about that. And then also they suggested that I have like a chat with other daily cartoonists, and we had like a little work Zoom over the pandemic, and they were all like, bro, you got to get an occupational therapist, and like giving really great advice. So it's nice to know that, like, kind of what you were saying, that these other cartoonists are more in line with you than you think. And it's hard to know that when we're all working in completely different areas and never really get a chance to do something like this,
Yeah.
actually. So
I will say you were talking about uh Garfield, Jim Davis, work with them. I think mine was well, outside of, I think me and Steenz both share Auntie Barbara Brandon Croft, that
yeah.
took us into the fold, like welcome to the club. But what is it? From Baby Blues, what's his name?
Yes.
Rick Kirkman
Yeah,
wrote me a
Rick
letter
and Jeremy. Yeah.
after my viral comment and was just like, this is what comics are about. And I was like, Baby
Yes.
Blues? Like, you're radical like this? Like, let's go. Like, your story is about like being young parents and like they never get older like The Simpsons. And this rules. So like that was really
Yeah.
awesome. But you brought up something that I kind of wanted to add to in terms of like onboarding. I will say there was two takeaways that I feel like after that viral comic, there was sort of like this pressure now that like every time I made a comic, it had to be that huge. And one thing my editor did tell me was just like, they just got to get done. They don't always have to be great. I think with this, it is a numbers game. And when you're coming from like maybe like doing like journalism or graphic novels or comics that aren't that frequent, you are just like, this always has to be the greatest piece of work I've always put out. With strips, some of them are just going to be bad. And you just kind of have to accept it. The joke's just not going to be funny. Like, it's just, you're gonna waste too much time trying to be funny or clever every time, and you just can't. And it's a volumes game. And then another thing that I did want to bring up was because of that viral moment that I had where I was starting to get a lot of hate mail, it did give the other chicks bravery to be like, hey, you know what? As like cis women and femmes and non-binary people, like we just face a lot of hate in general in this industry, so can we do something about this? So we kind of came together to sort of help with some of those trolls. So I unfortunately, like, the first person through the room gets shot. I'm glad I got shot for that opportunity for us to get a little bit more, like, let's do something to protect us in this industry. Like, let's look at that. Let's not say like, hey, yeah, look at this, we finally got this Black person here, like I'm the first Black person to join this strip. But then like, what's going to be done to protect me as a Black person from like racial hate that like the history of the industry, there are a smattering of us like brown M&Ms in a bag.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. I mean, I was thrilled. I got an email from the creator of Jumpstart, that was like, welcome to the family. And I was like, this is great. I made it.
Yeah.
Dee, what was the process for you? Because you are not taking on a legacy strip. Yours is completely creator owned. So how did it go for you?
So, in the difference for me between the three of you, I had a 10-year head start. When I talked about my first strip, Life with Cromie, that I was doing for my local paper, that was a daily strip. I was doing that every day. It was in the daily comics page. It knocked out non sequitur out of the comics page.
Oh my
So
God.
I learned a lot about CMYK formatting that I'm still learning about because I feel like I still have no clue what to do with that. I learned about Reed Brennan Media, so where I had to submit the strips to. I learned a lot of that starting. To be honest, I think the first thing I learned was about rejection. To be honest, I didn't want to be a newspaper cartoonist. I was tricked into it. A friend of mine, after I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to do art, but I didn't know what type of art. And so the characters that end up forming Life with Cromie were characters I was baking in high school. And a friend of mine challenged me, said, "Hey, you have these really good characters. What if you took these characters and made newspaper strip off of it?" This is after everyone knew how much I love Garfield, how much I love comic strips and all this. Was making comic strips for my school newspaper and all this other stuff. I was against it, their idea of me doing a comic strip the whole way through. So they're like, "Here, let me challenge you. I want you to do 24 comic strips. You have a deadline for these, but I won't tell you what that deadline is. Just get them done and let me know when you're finished." So I say, "Okay, I'll do that." I didn't want to do it, but I ended up doing it. So I gave him the 24 comics. He said, "You had a 6-week deadline. You got these done in 4. And that's the standard for syndicated cartoonists. So now what I want you to do is to take these comics and go to our local newspaper and see if they'll run them in our local paper." And so originally I was working on like printer paper, Pilot G2 pins. Everything was just so crusty and unprofessional. But one day after, in 2013, I was walking nearby our newspaper building and I said, "Okay, I'm here. I guess I'll just walk in." I didn't know who I was looking for. I didn't know the name of the editor or who I needed to talk to. I just walked in, spoke to the first woman I saw and said, "Hey, can I speak to the editor to see if they'll run my comics in the paper?" And so the editor was there, lucky enough, and he brought me into his office and talked with me. We talked about each other, learned a bit about ourselves. And so I told him what I wanted to do, and I was completely, as I said, I did a lot of this half-heartedly because I had no belief that I was actually going to do this. So I gave him the comics I did. He looked at them, and he sat them down. And he said, "Dion, you're not funny, but I like your art. So what I want you to do is to take these comics and make more for me and come back in the next couple months or so." And that's when the light switch hit. That's when someone said, "There's an actual chance that I could do this." So I spent the next 2.5 years working with this editor, developing this comic, learning more about how to handle this strip. And so then towards the end of 2014, my friend David Reddick, who was also uh, who had ties to the local paper, who was also working for Jim at the time, told me that he wanted me to come out to Paws Inc. and talk with him and you know learn about me, about what I'm doing and stuff. And I cried in front of him. I have a whole story. I could talk about that another time, but let's talked with Jim and David about what I was wanting to do and how I was wanting to do it, which goes into the story of him helping me get my first strip into our local paper. And so, with all that being said, I learned a lot through that experience of making a daily self-syndicated strip about time management, which I'm still bad at. Keeping up with your deadlines, which I'm moderately okay with, and various other things that I had this experience ahead of time. That when I started developing Rosebuds, which was also an accident, by the way, it was originally supposed to be a graphic novel series I was doing with these characters. I made these characters in high school that were loosely based on a few friends of mine that kind of acted as a unit. So they're kind of loosely inspired by the Rosebud sisters. They're all named after them. The characters are named after them as well. But I was wanting to do a graphic novel with these characters, and I was starting to develop that graphic novel, but then I had the thought of doing comic strips just to kind of get myself I haven't done anything with these characters in who knows how long. So I wanted to slowly reintroduce myself into the opportunity to do so. So I started making these comics. I started posting them online. They started gaining a ton of traction. And then Andrews McNeil reached out and said, "Hey, we like this strip. We want to syndicate it for Go Comics." And so I shelved the graphic novel to pursue the webcomic syndication with Go Comics. So the strip lasted there for about until 2023. Then King Features came in and said, "We love this strip. We want to nationally syndicate this." And then there was a year-long bidding war between AMU and King for the strip. And so King came out on top and took on the strip. The onboarding was pretty seamless. They were already fans of the strip when they reached out. Got to talk with T. Rosebuds was actually one of the final strips they helped syndicate before they left for Boom Studios. So which was really nice thing that I like to fondly think about. But they kind of showed me the ropes. They told me about file formatting, like here's what we need for this, what we're going to do for here's how you format your strips. This is how you're going to you're format your strips. They gave me templates of like here's the sizing of like the quarter standard, the third standard, and various other standards that may be needed for the strip. And so they told me about a little bit about coloring processing. The editors have been hands on enough where I'm like they're hands off in terms of like the strip itself. Like everything that I do with the strip is completely from me. But if I need something or need like, hey, what do I do about this or this? They will, stick a hand in and say, hey, this is how you do this. They'll correct any spelling mistakes I might accidentally stumble upon, which is great because that's terrible. But yeah, I learned a whole lot through this. Originally, the strip was for AMU. It was originally 2 days a week, so it was every Tuesday and Thursday. Then when King Features picked it up, it was Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays because the original idea we wanted to do was Sundays would be for newspapers, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays would be for the online clients and for my online readers. There was just a giant demand for more Rosebuds from newspaper editors and my readers that we just said, hey, let's go daily. So last year, we went daily with the strip, and it has taken off tremendously. You guys talking about like the syndicate, like this whole syndication process, it's so hard because there hardly are any openings for comic strips to come in. I'm Rosebuds is the most recent strip any of the syndicates have picked up in the last couple of years or so. I am one of so right now, like in terms of original created comic strips in Indiana that are in newspapers, it's just me and Jim. Like we're the only two with an original strip that is being currently syndicated in newspapers. Everyone else is doing legacy strips, and I'm also the first Black syndicated cartoonist in over 100 years. We have a huge history of cartoonists here, but not really many that have done anything of this caliber. So, there's a lot of pressure on me, being one of the new kids on the block and trying to make sure I'm doing a good job, making sure, I'm doing what I can to do the best that I can. I'm very active online in terms of like engaging with my readers and stuff like that. I like to read, seeing what people say. I try to really file what is good feedback and what is bad feedback, and I have enough people that will tell me, you know, hey, don't follow too much about this, or this is nice to hear, things like that. Ray Billingsley, the creator of Curtis, was one of my other mentors that had kind of raised me from my teenager days, from when I was doing Life with Karami. So when I got syndicated with King, he was the first person I told, and he was one of the first people to really congratulate me for this. And so it's been a really fun journey. There's a lot that still needs to be done, but for what we've been able to do now, just in this small time frame, has been incredible.
Good. That's really awesome. Well, pressure is hard to deal with, that's for sure. But you're doing it. You're killing it, day by day. So speaking of, day by day, how's the process for you guys? So some of you have certain days, some of are daily. For my process, because it is a daily strip, I turn in the dailies 4 weeks ahead of print, and then the Sundays 6 weeks ahead of print. I also write my storylines in giant, like 3-month chunks, because the idea of waking up on Monday and having to write a new week unprepared is terrifying and I don't want to do it. So I just, I write them all at once. And it's nice to be able to like send that to my editor and get their kind of like their vibe on how the stories are going. And then when it comes to the time where I actually start drawing them, week by week, I'll make tiny little edits. It's comics. I feel like the idea to completion, it changes a lot all the way up until you turn it in.
Mhm.
I know Bianca was talking about, or no, Henry, you were talking about how you have like um so much freedom to do what you like with the story. I feel like it's the same way for me. I didn't really get any like feedback on content. They were just like, make it good. So Henry, what's your process since you doing the writing and the coloring and the lettering? How do you make that work with your artist?
Well, yeah, I remember starting off being like super um big and prepared, and within the last 4 years, I've definitely have become less structured and more um kind of on the fly, for better or for worse. It does. I do like the idea of having the characters sit with you and talk to you and letting them, you know, uh kind of tell you what's next. And I do appreciate that not every strip is going to be the best. Not, I think I heard it from you, Steenz, that you said you're looking, it's the forest through the tree situation where you're just trying to get
Oh yeah.
through,
Oh yeah.
um, and have this kind of longevity. But for me, it's I try to write I like to write on Sundays, and then throughout the week is when I'm doing the lettering and the coloring. Um, but it is like a lot of just like paying attention to what's happening in sports, paying attention to like people I know that are coaches. I've even like talked to the students and student athletes that are like selling candy bars outside of the grocery store. Obviously with their parents' permission, and you don't want to like take advantage of anybody because it is their lived experience. I'm a 37-year-old man that's writing about high school kids, and I think I will always be late on the terminology, and I will always be like to unk, as the kids have said. uh, so it's just like, you just try to, for me, and with Gil, it's very much of trying to stay ahead of schedule, trying to honor the character the best you can while giving people a reason to come back, and to say something different, like being the first cartoonist within 100 years to have a new strip is incredible, and having such a big impact. I mean, just when you said that I Can't Breathe strip, that like transported me to the moment I saw it for the first time, and seeing the endless takes on it. And if you forget what, I'm just poorly quoting Alan Moore at this point, but there is like a magic to these comics. Like there is like a rhythm, there is like a trance that you could do. There is you can affect people's lives with 3 panels, 1 panel, 1 word, 1 art, in for better or for worse. So you try to, especially with these strips that like live next to Garfield, that live next to the Peanuts and Doonesbury and Pickles and Heart of the City, you want to like honor that real estate and make sure that it belongs to be there. And that preparation is just like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for me. Like it
Yeah.
never, there's never not a time I'm not thinking about Gil, and people are always asking me about it. And
Yeah.
now he is like a grown white man that I have to live with for all these years. And like he's sometimes an extension of me, and a lot of times he's has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of creative freedom for that.
Yeah, I love that. The idea that Gil is always with you. That's kind of how I feel about Heart of the City as well. You know, I just like I have a Google Doc of miscellaneous story ideas that I don't really flesh out. I just kind of write what I think. And then when it's time for me to write those 3 months of stories, I'm like, all right, what do I got? You know? And
It's good to
that's
have
just
that.
required. Yeah. And it's nice to have it because it is like no end in sight. So you kind of have to constantly have ideas and stories. What about you, Bianca? Do you keep a master doc of stories, or do you have like a flash of brilliant idea that you always write down? What's your steps?
Um, well, what is it? At first I kind of want to just agree with what Henry was saying before about like our real estate and the space that we have with our comics. I know that like our demographic, at least I assume that a lot of our demographic are probably possibly twice our age.
Yes.
And with that opportunity though, it's like they're not really on social media, they're not constantly getting this news. So yes, I do take that responsibility of like using the space to like, yeah, like it is an important real estate that we have. It's another form of communication, and also excuse me, it also like a space that isn't, despite that sometimes I might get like a okay buddy, like on my joke, like it's not super censored, and where I have faced censorship in more radical spaces that I was shocked to reach. Where I remember I got to the biggest fight with my that's an exaggeration, but I did get into like a disagreement with my publisher with some of using the word spooky in punk rock karaoke, and I was like, we could say it. I was like, it's fine. It's for Halloween.
Yeah.
Like just I know.
Yeah.
We actually don't even have to be like, hey, actually guys, I know you associate this word with like something cute like Halloween. Let's make everyone really upset right now. I was like, we don't have to do that. I know. I know this country was very racist. We get it. But in terms of process, I do have like a Google Doc or like a notes app where a lot of times it's just kind of like that's funny, and then or somebody will say something and I'll be like that's funny, and I'll just write it down. But because it's not a story driven comic, it is hard to, again, like it's hard to be funny and tell a one liner week after week, especially. I don't know if you all have ever faced this, and I'm kind of curious to hear from the group. Especially when like life sucks, like when there's a lot going on in the news, or like even just sometimes like the dead of winter and it's like post holiday and we're broke and we're just like scraping it together and it's cold and it's bleak outside. It's hard for me to wake up and be like, now let's tell a one liner. Like I don't have it. And yeah, so it is like important to have those things, but even sometimes I'll look at that document of jokes and I'll be like, none of that feels right either. And I've allowed myself to just like use the space to just be like, Bianca's not funny today in my comic, and just put that out in the world, because I think that it's also important to show that sometimes tears of a clown, like sometimes clowns aren't feeling it either, and that's okay. But I would say like in the summer and um in like around Halloween time, I usually try to build like some sort of arc where it's like, what is it? So if you're familiar with the X-Files, like every episode Scully had to say, I'm a medical doctor, because just in case this was the first X-File you ever seen and you just kind of popped it on, you would understand that Mulder works for the FBI. Scully also works for the FBI, but she used to be a medical doctor, and you have that information all the time. So I try to sometimes piece together an arc that if this is the only one that you read, if this is the one strip that you read, you would be able to get the joke. It would stand alone as a singular joke. Or I'm like, there is like a part of me that hopes that there's just some weird kid out there that's just like, oh, Bianca made an arc, and like cuts them all out and like tapes them on their wall. Like I hope there's some weirdo out there that's just like really stoked when they notice that I did it. Or if I I have like repeating jokes that I do. I have repeating trolling jokes too for my audience that I do as well. That I hope people pay attention to. Sometimes I'll get a comment be like, "Oh, they're doing this again. They didn't feel like redrawing something." I'm like, "No, that's the joke.
That's the bit. Yeah.
That's the
I
bit."
definitely have made a lot of rerun type jokes because I'm like, well, now it's a bit. Like I have a recurring joke where someone's like, "Where's the line?" And they go, "You're in it." And the line is like super, super long. It's like one of my favorite silly little visual jokes to draw a crowd of people come out of nowhere, you know? And every time
Is
I
that
use
also
it,
an easy way to just put the same crowd?
yeah. Yes, we have to find a way to make it easy.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I do. I also hope that people pick up on those recurring jokes, those through lines through everything, because we do
Mhm.
work hard to keep them in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Dee, what about you? Are you I know you were saying you're middling at turning things in on time.
Yeah, well, so luckily my Sundays are okay. They're 8 to 9 weeks ahead, so that's
Oh,
pretty good. My dailies are about 3-ish, 4. I'm trying to get farther ahead, but I'm such a stickler for how I write that I spend like at least 2 or 3 days panicking on that part alone.
mm,
I wanted to show something before. You guys were talking about like newspaper real estate. I just wanted to give a visual example of like the real estate of newspapers. This is my local paper, and as you can see, here's Rosebuds right here. And so the real estate for newspaper comics are, it's true, they are shrinking day by day,
yeah.
and it gets harder and harder to really break into that space. As we've, something that's often said that everyone's been saying is that the only time that someone can really give in is if they're retiring. Something controversial happens that they get kicked out of the industry. Uh, or they die. And by God, hope that they don't go into reruns. So there's a lot of struggling spaces for that. And for new comics to come in, it's much harder for them to come in. Like you guys came in through legacy strips. So they already had their defining fan bases and stuff and readerships and things like that. Whereas Rosebuds has to start from the ground up and it had to, really get into get people to trust this. And so with this process, you know, I don't think I'm a funny person, but I do think that I can make characters that are worth caring about. So I have written Rosebuds in a way that it is a character driven strip where you're also learning about the characters and their interactions, their personalities, things that you would say, oh, that's so funny that she did this, or Rosa did this one day and I really love that. You love seeing their interactions rather than quips or comments that they have made. You love seeing the things that they have done. And so when I write, I always keep that in mind in terms of just like how to, proceed with stuff forward. And, one of the struggles with doing a daily strip is that if you're doing a story arc, you have to make sure that you are making it in a way that is standalone, but also progresses throughout. So if you're making like a week long story arc, each comic has to be individualized. So even if it's taken out of context, there's still some sort of story within that continues on for the next ones. So
That idea is like, I actually, that's the final in my cartooning course, is they have to do a 12 strip comic where each strip has to be standalone, but has an overarching storyline. And it's just like it's a good skill to have because you now can make a story in the smallest amount of space that you could possibly have. You know, I think what comics are 2 inches by 6 inches, you know? So if you can make a story in something that has that little real estate, once you actually have like the space for like a 200-page graphic novel, you're like, this is wonderful. I have the world is my oyster, you know?
yeah, and especially with comic strip, you're so limited on words. Like you have no space to say anything. You have to
Yeah.
really make sure you have to really make sure that you drive home your point with as little words or less.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
what I typically oh go ahead.
no, I mean, go ahead. No.
What I typically do, I as you guys, I have like a I use Discord more specifically. Either use Discord or like have a Word doc that has like themes of ideas to do in the comic that if I can't do gag, if I'm not really good at gag-a-day ones, so I use story arcs to help me kind of branch things out. I kind of treat them like cartoon episodes. Like if they were ever animated, this would be like its own individualized short sort of thing. So I try to keep those story arcs like cartoon episodes. And so I have a long list that I run through with that. I have notebooks here that I have made that are actually templates of the strip, so I can just sketch my ideas out and get it written and put something together, and then I finalize it digitally. What I typically do is I have a what I call my QA team, where I will sketch things out and I'll send it to my closest friends and say, "What do you think of this?" And they will give me their feedback and advice, like this is good or you misspelled the word. Typically, everything gets solidified before it ever gets to king features. So I try to clean things up as much as possible. So there's little for them to say, hey, we probably need to do this or that with it. They've been, as I said before, they've been incredibly hands off. They've just let me do what I want because they know my work enough to know that I wouldn't do anything that would stir the pot too much. So I just keep things, character driven first, and then go from there. So if as long as that is taken care of, then the strip kind of works itself out.
Yeah. Henry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I think I was gonna mention the fact that coming from comics was a blessing because there's so much of the medium that I love and so many things that have inspired me specifically through comics. So one of my favorite moments of taking over a strip was um I did 3 panels of a football player setting the ball, coming back and throwing the ball. So if when you could turned in tomorrow, you would see whether the pass was completed or not. And a lot of the readers were like, "Oh, Henry took a day off. He didn't write anything for this." Because it was, it was
Without
textless.
dialogue. Yeah.
And using that three, that frame, what I love to do is have moments where there are no panels. It's just one whole,
Yeah.
day is that one whole panel, like basically one
One
panel.
long one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love making and to talk about the real estate again, it's just finding ways to stand out. I'm 99% confident that whenever my strips are textless, I'm the only one that's textless because
Yeah.
of how important it is to relay information to have characters. So it works against you. But if you can have those quiet moments where that one point on that newspaper page or on the Go Comics where you're scrolling through the ones you're subscribing to, and there's one strip that has either one full image or no text, that will stop people for better or
Yeah.
for worse.
It's definitely worth the risk, I say. I mean, you got this contract that you'll be on for a couple of years, might as well give it a try. You know, it's like so interesting that we talk about the text of it all. And I remember when I was auditioning for the spot, I was like, you guys are like giving me notes on the story, which I love. Great, thank you. But you're not giving me any notes on like the actual drawing of it. And they're like, yeah, you can draw. It's like, this is crazy. I'm just like, I'm so used to editors being like, well, here are drawing notes and here are words notes on like the script and the dialogue. And, you know, comic strips are so focused on getting the idea across in such a short amount of space that they just really want to make sure that you understand the cadence of strip comic dialogue and how to use them, you know? So very interesting. Where do you see the future of syndicated comics going? I mean, I know right now already we've got Go Comics and Comics Kingdom are websites that you can read comics on. Previously, it was just if you find it in the newspaper, great. So it's nice that there's actually a website where you can read all of these strips today, anytime you want. That is just, you know, one step of the future. Where do you guys see it going after that?
I mean, I'm actively trying to divest from Google. I'm trying to divest from Instagram and trying to find ways um to not feed to this AI issue that we're having. So I do hope that we find ways to print these comics. And I love newspapers. I used to work for multiple papers. But I know that I mean, I think if there was less corporate greed that owned these papers, and there was some like balance of like, hey, we should have these physical pieces of information that might not be available on the internet anymore, or that are, you know, are compromising in a moral way. If we can have these, you know, pieces of art distributed physically, that would be great. But I think we're gonna find that you know, there is these paywalls behind these websites, and I feel like we're in this moment where every dollar counts, and it's going to be really difficult to monetize these strips. And I don't foresee newspapers being printed long, just because of the corporate greed of these companies and corporations and conglomerates that own these papers. I mean, we're already seeing it with the mass exodus of CNN that's being bought up by Paramount and Skydance, and now this one family owns multiple um, forms of news and how that information is being distributed. And I love the fact that we're all so diverse, and we all in this panel here come from so many different walks of life. But unfortunately, that we're not the kind of people they want to be highlighting, and so while I appreciate everything that's happening now, I feel like we need to find ways to sustain comic strips, whether they be its own newspaper, whether it's be its own publication, and find ways to keep making this art available, because I'm really worried for what's going to happen next, and kind of just the consolidation of all these media companies.
Yeah, and I don't know if this has happened to newspapers in your area, but I know the St. Louis Post-Dispatch was purchased by Lee Enterprises, and Lee Enterprises is known for gutting papers. You know, they got rid of our like basically the entire comic section. So I think there's only like even less real estate than what Dee was showing. You know, Dee showed
Exactly.
like a full page, and I think in Post Dispatch it's only like a quarter of a page now. You know. So it's like, well, where are these comics going? Especially with the recent uh thing that happened with the Prairie Land folks, with giving out zines and getting 30 to 50 years to life for doing that. Um, I hope that isn't the standard because I think that would be a great way for comics to continue outside of newspapers and paywalls like go on Go Comics, where you do have to have a subscription, you know. it would be nice to be able to find a way to get it to people without having to worry about corporate takeover. Yeah. Yeah.
And making sure folks are paid and
Oh, yeah. I
anything
love
else,
being
yeah.
paid. Yeah, that would be great.
No, it's grim, but I feel like we just have to figure out ways to keep making this sustainable and in so many different ways.
Yeah, and it's okay for it to be grim. You know, life is grim. And I think it's important to be truthful about what the industry is like. You know, that's why I was so excited about doing this panel with you guys, because syndicated comics, I feel, is quite opaque. You know, you don't really know how to get in. You don't know who the editors are. You don't know where they're located. I didn't even know that Andrew McNeil was in Kansas City, Missouri. So I can go anytime, you know? So, and I've been there. It's great. It's a great spot. But it's like there's not enough information out there on like how to get into this and what's going on, that it makes sense that we want to be real about what's going on in the industry. Bianca, what do you think?
Um, yeah, I mean, like it's a bummer of a reality that we're existing in. And I care in so many ways as an artist and an educator, just like the state of literacy, because comics are like, that's why they are creating these new ways of putting artists and writers and sort of different sort of pamphlets and writing to give you these life sentences, because it's still pushing towards literacy, it's still pushing towards information. And yeah, I mean, it does, for me, it kind of sucks. Like I'm in part of the camp of like, um I wish there was no cost of living. Like I would do this for free if I didn't have to pay to live, in a
Yeah.
way where it's just like I would be drawing comics anyway.
Yeah.
I was doing other things. Like I had other career goals back when I was searching that. I entered the industry as like a graphic designer, and I was doing that. And then I was like, oh well, no, I actually hate industry work. I don't want to do corporate work anymore. I want to make something that I feel good about and that I can stand behind. But like it's great that like our comics exist on these websites, but then it's just like I wish everyone could read them. Like, and like there's these paywalls that then like prevent people from being able to see it. Like I can't even like send things to like your grandma or something because they're just like, I can't see it, like, or it just wouldn't let me look at it. You can only look back so many comics before it's just like, give me money. And like real, because like pay us. But then like this used to be something that was so accessible and so cheap that that's where like a lot of us like found our love for comics, was because it was a medium that we could afford as children, with finding change on the ground. Like comics were that easy to access and made us excited and gave us imaginations and made us excited about storytelling and wonder and world and hope, and build in like painting a bright future when you can read about different forms of community, like even just like as simple as like reading X-Men, like as a kid to be like, oh wow, I can live in a polycule with all of my weird friends one day. It's just like, that's like it gave you that, it gave you those things. And now it's just like it's really frustrating. And even with like these magazines, not magazines, these newspapers getting cut and gutted, then it's just like the space of comics that are left are like dead comics that aren't being like written anymore, that are just sort of just like, oh, like no offense, like I have a Snoopy tattoo, right? Before I say anything, Snoopy tattoo, all right? But like it's being like
Yeah.
filled with Peanuts comics that aren't being written anymore, that just reruns. Just like fill it with reruns with like iconic imagery that people be like, oh look, a comic, and it's sort of passive. And the way people are looking at it, they're looking at comics as passive medium, as fodder, that's just like that it's teaching the public to not have an appreciation for it if it's just like images that they see over and over and over again, where they're not really engaging with it. It's just sort of just like whatever. um and that is frustrating. What was it, you and I, me and Steenz made this zine for Cake this year, called Joint Comic, and that process sort of like reintroduced my love for comics and storytelling, because I've been on this sort of like, again, like career level of doing comics. I'm working on my books. I'm being like published by a big publisher, by Penguin Random House and all these other things, and it was starting to become so much of a business end of comics that it was like I was starting to lose like, all right, this is just a piece of paper and an idea and some jokes between friends is also like equally as important as, if not sometimes even more important than just like these bigger like pieces of work that has a lot of hands into it and has a lot of editing and a lot of censorship and is being packaged to sell something than just like DIY. And I think that again, like regardless of where this will go financially, I know that DIY will always exist. We're always going to create art. We're always going to make work regardless of the state of the world because we have to. That's just what we do as beings. It's making art and telling stories is natural to us as eating and sleeping and pooping. Like it's like we have to. And we won't be silenced in this. What it'll turn into, I'm not sure. Um and it is devastating. Like I introduced told you about all these different outlets I used to write for. They're all gone. Like
Yeah.
every single column or space that I've had, all gone. But I don't want to lose hope because then like what's the point? Like why am I doing this? I have to visualize, I have to see and create that future for myself that something will be there for me as I keep trudging along. Or again, yeah, I do get into that hole where I don't want to make work because then I'm just like, why am I doing this? If it's all going to end, if they're going to take it all away from me. And it's just like, you have to want to stand your ground. And that way you got to have to want to like, no, we want to keep this. We can't just concede every time they shut down a publication. We can't just be like, well, they're all gone now. What are we gonna do? Let's start something. Let's build something. These were once built themselves. We can do these things ourselves. We don't, they can create their own world of AI and propaganda and alternative facts. We can create a new world and just do our own thing over here.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Dee, what do you think? The future of syndicated strips. Where do you see it going?
I think regardless of what happens, it will always be here. I think the way that people consume it will probably change. As you see that with Comics Kingdom and Go Comics, that people are reading them online now more than ever. Newspapers, who knows what's going to happen to them? Everyone's talking about, oh, they're dying, they've been saying this for the past 30, 40 years that they're slowly dying, that they're not relevant anymore, and various words of that nature. There are certain concerns in terms of how comics are distributed, in terms of, as I mentioned before, reruns, legacy strips being taken over, things of that nature. No offense to you guys whatsoever, but you know the conflict of like, you know, we're constantly being given reheated leftovers of someone else's work, and it's not allowing a new generation to come in to show off their stuff, to show off the stuff that they're inspired by, and things of that nature. So it makes it hard. Like, I don't even know if people get mentored into newspaper cartooning anymore. Like, as you said, like there's no real information about this stuff anymore. I feel like after the 2000s, it's kind of just dwindled, that people kind of just pulled the ladder up behind them and just said good luck. So it makes it harder for new people to come in because no one knows. When I talk about being a syndicated comic artist, people look at me like, that's still a thing? You still get
Oh,
paid for
yeah.
that? So
People have been saying that about comics in general for years. 20 years ago, even someone would be like, they still make comics?
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I remember reading the Family Circus in my paper with my grandpa. Things of that nature. So, the comics will always be here. The way that people will read them will always be different. You were talking about like how limiting the spaces are, like, with like the whole Lee Enterprises taking over. There's also like USA Today that took over and did what was called the Gannett 34. And for those who don't know, basically they own like 200 to 300 newspapers, and they homogenized every single one of them to say, here are 34 comics that you can choose from. Anything outside of this list, you cannot have in your newspaper. So that knocks out a good chunk of people, a good chunk of income from cartoonists who can't even be in a USA Today newspaper. I'm lucky that Rosebuds is on USA Today on their online newspaper, but I can't get in the physical ones because of this stupid rule. And so there's two newspapers in my state that I've been really wanting to get my strip into that are just completely locked out because of this. So, the avenue of how people will get this stuff will always change because we've become so digital heavy that more people are starting to read stuff, especially web comics that aren't syndicated through Patreon and Twitter and Instagram and Blue Sky and all these other social media outlets. So it makes it much, the way that as I said, the way that people will get these comics will just change, but they will never stop.
I love it. Comics will never stop. We'll never stop. We can create the world that we want to live in. Hurrah, hurrah.
I did want to say, I am really bummed out. And like, honestly, I'm hurt that I didn't get, I know that they just said they were just going to rerun it. We're not going to make anything new. But as someone who can really write a sad teenage white boy really, really well, that's like kind of alternative. I'm so bummed they didn't ask me to take over Zits. I think I could have done it justice. I think like I would have killed it. This was my favorite comic as a kid. I had a crush on him. Like I was like, let me do it. Let me write it.
Speaking on that front, like we have to applaud Big Nate, Lincoln Pierce, after 35 years, or is either between 32 or 35 years. He ended the daily run and said he's not going to do reruns. He's gone to a Sunday only. He's making new Sundays, but he has ended the daily strip and has pulled out of the newspaper game. So other comics can come in and take over. And I'm very lucky. Rosebuds has actually started taking up some of those slots, and that's one of those things that is so detriment to the living aspect of these syndicate of us continuing to thrive, is that we have to be able to be giving these chances to show our stuff. But if we don't have the space to do it, it makes it a lot harder for us. Not impossible, just really hard. It's like, unfortunately, Zits and Baby Blues are ending next year, but they're going into reruns. So unless newspapers themselves say, hey, we're going to take this strip out to make way for a strip that is making new content. Unfortunately, a lot of newspapers today are newspaper editors or publishers are saying, hey, a lot of these are reruns. Why are we paying for reruns? So they're just gutting their comics page entirely to save money on the newspaper print and stuff. So it's a constant uphill battle about this stuff, about trying to get into these spaces, making sure your voices are heard, especially online, where we're fighting with webcomic creators as well, who don't need syndicates to show off their work. You can just post your comic online and be a professional cartoonist as long as you're getting paid for it. So it's like a friendly fire sort of thing. Like, we're all friends, but we're also competitors as well, and that's kind of a thing that we all have to recognize one way or another, that we are trying to make a living at this, and there are going to be some that will get cut, some will rise above the trenches or whatever. So it's really hard. And like, this is one of those things that our community as cartoonists that we all strive to do, is to keep growing and try to build each other up, regardless of the conflicts of the politics of the print publishing industry in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough goings, but there's a reason we're all here. I don't know if you told me 10 years ago that there would be this many Black people making comics in the newspaper. I mean, I don't know if I would believe you. So I don't know. I think we always one must imagine Sisyphus happy. You just have to, you have to be hopeful, or else you have nothing. But okay, I want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. So any students have any questions for any of our panelists today? Any at all? Yes.
How would you recommend working towards a start in comic syndication, or an original idea instead of this?
the question was, how would you start the work of creating an original syndicated comic from scratch? Like, what is the process here?
Do
Dee, do
we
you want to give an answer since you did that?
do we talk about the truth?
I mean, if you can get it done in 5 minutes, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. If I had to do everything that I have done over the past 10 years to get into syndication right now, I probably wouldn't do it. It is a uphill battle. Web syndication, definitely. I think there's opportunities for that. Like if you want to get syndicated through Go Comics or Comics Kingdom, or have an opportunity to do something with Webtoon or something. There are avenues to get into these distributions. And one of the most important things about it is write what you know, write with your heart, write passionately about whatever it is you want to do. A lot of us are taking from personal experiences to write our stuff. Uh, Keep writing, workshop with friends and family and people that you know. Talk with other cartoonists that you are inspired by. Email them or reach out to them on social media. A lot of us are pretty social. We'll happily share any insight that we can. Uh, it's just difficult. Like print syndication, I strongly wouldn't recommend it.
It's incredibly difficult. I mean, you don't want to give someone the idea that this is easy when it's not. That's one of the I think anyway, the most important thing about mentorship and education is being very real and forthcoming about the realities and what you actually have to do, I will say there's something that you and I both did, which was making, well, you did 20 comics and I had to do 2 weeks worth of strips. So give that to yourself as an exercise. Do 14 strips. That's 12 dailies and 2 Sundays and see how that works for you. Try and do a story that is overarching of those 2 weeks, and each strip should be self-contained on its own. And if you can do that, that's a great first step. So try that out
Yeah.
first.
I would also say, and I'm sorry, Supr Dee, but a lot of what I have to say is kind of the opposite of what you said. But try not to talk to friends and family. They're always gonna not want to hurt your feelings. They're gonna be like, yeah, this is great, do it. But I think there's a lot to be said of making comics, and that's like the original thing that you're trying to do is make comics and find ways to do that. Whether because I can't draw, I have to rely on folks to help me with the skeleton of what I want to do. So if you can draw comics in a way that people are consuming the way they consume everything right now, whether it be vertical scroll on Webtoon and Tapas, whether it be, scrolling on 1080 by 1080 on Instagram. I hate to say to upload to Instagram because they have very weird language and what they could do with the art and the files that you're giving them. But I would say, yeah, you're inherently trying to tell a story, so a lot of it is craft of learning how to tell a story, learning how to draw that story, and finding ways to get that to people, complete strangers, and people that could look at this work objectively, and there's always going to be criticism, there's always going to be people that want to give you notes, but at the end of the day, making art and putting it out there and continuing to do that. Uh, Perfect example, Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. Those guys were making their show for years, and they put out this movie, and it's an incredible hit. And now you have all this plethora of stuff that you can go back to. So the moment you're getting called up to do these syndicated strips or to get these jobs, you'll be ready because you have already made all that comics.
That's right. Just make it. No one's going to stop you.
Okay,
We have a question from online. I'd like to get that question is, how do you remain focused in order to hit your deadlines? Are there tips on getting in a working headspace when you're not feeling it? I stay focused by gift giving. if I can turn in my stuff before 6 p.m., I get to drink a beer and smoke a joint. So yeah, it helps. I'm very, determined to get that beer and joint. Anyone else have suggestions for keeping focus?
Well, I want to get. I didn't mean like I didn't want it to sound like Supr Dee, like I was trying to like, you know.
No, no,
There's-
no. I was going to rewrite. I was going to asterisk what I said. Be selective of
Be
who
selective.
who you get your advice from friends or family, whoever. Be selective about it.
Yeah. And just to answer the question, I would say, if there's any way that you can treat this as professional as you can, like Steenz is giving themselves until 6 p.m. to do work, like making it trying to have a healthy perspective of like, this is a job, this is a craft. Try not to make a perfect romantic scenario. Try not to be like, I need to be at a coffee shop and I need to be, like at a, like I love writing and making comics at airports. Like there's just something about sitting there and it not being romantic and it not being like a perfect environment. Try not to like create this such a perfect place where if it's off, it's not working with you. I always say work against that in any way you can and find a rhythm and I have artifacts like I wrote Batman once, so I have a Batman artifact. I love having like something that I can hold and I can like kind of call to in these situations, but try not to make it so romantic in your mind.
I love that. That's a great advice.
Uh, I have undiagnosed. I mean, not undiagnosed. I had diagnosed ADHD. I am unmedicated, so I am often my worst. I am often my worst hindrance. So I have a schedule that I try to abide by. That my best friend Luca made for me. So I try to abide by it as much as I can. And if I don't, it disappoints him, and that breaks my heart. So I try to I really try to stay in line, try to remove as much distraction I can. If I can have background noise on, like if I'm like listening to like someone play Mario Party or a lore videos on video games that I'm interested in playing or I have played or just want to hear documentaries or whatever, just in the background where I like just to know like there's something existing in this area. That helps me a lot, and then I can just lock in for an unprecedented amount of time, often to my detriment. So things like that help me. Is stuff like that is just ways that I can be held accountable and try to stay on top of what I got to do.
Yeah. Bianca?
I'm bad at this, but I will say that sometimes I mentioned this before, it doesn't always have to be good. Like just get it done. And I think sometimes when you get outside of yourself and your own perfectionism and you start thinking about like the other jobs and people's lives who are at stake, you kind of have to get over yourself and just get it done. And it's not always going to be like that. I think it's also times when I get in like the late stage capitalism whole mindset, I have to remember that like again, I'm a clown for a living and this is fun. And like when I start getting like really mad, I'm like, "Ooh," I'm just like, this is fun. You want to do this. You chose this. Shut up and do it. And like sometimes you just got to talk to yourself that way. But like I don't know. Sometimes I like to imagine like in a very sort of like I know this is like aging me, but like Jumanji, like the shoe getting stuck in like the conveyor belt. Like I like to think about the newspaper being like, we can't press the newspaper because we don't have Bianca strip yet, you know? So like they're like, stop the presses, like you got to get it in before they pull that and like the steam comes out and stuff. So you got to get it done, you know, or like, little Susie's not gonna get her medicine, like you got to get the strip done. So I like imagine like that world and I'm like, I got to get the strip done. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You do what you got to do. Okay, we have time for one more question. Any questions from here?
Ooh,
Yeah.
go.
I
Another
know
goal.
in the past, the standard for strips has been dailies are black and white and Sundays are colored. someone mentioned that they color their strip every day.
Mm,
Is that like a standard? Was that you that said that?
there was, yeah.
Is that like the standard that you agreed upon, or is that just like, do strips have to be colored daily for them to be like viable strips or?
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. The question was, do strips have to be colored to be viable? Must they all be black and white dailies or color Sundays? They usually will ask you to do everything, and then it depends on the newspaper. So some newspapers only get black and white versions. Some newspapers get full color dailies. Some newspapers only get Sundays, and then they don't get dailies at all. So you're kind of contracted to do all of them, or at least I am. I'm contracted to do all of it so that the newspapers can pick and choose what they want to pay for. Because I think it's probably more expensive to have full color dailies. But some newspapers do it, you know?
Mhm.
Is it different for you guys?
No, I have to
Okay.
turn in 6 colored dailies, 6 colored,
Yeah.
6 black and whites,
Yep.
and full color Sundays.
Yep, we just gotta do it all. Great question. All right, well, we did have one last question from online, which is how much coffee do you guys drink? And I actually don't drink coffee at all. I can't have any caffeine. So
Wow.
I am running
I
on
remember that.
pure will and a beer and a joint.
Yeah. I drink a lot of coffee, and I went to Coffee World Con in San Diego, where Comic Con is. We're in the wrong business, everybody. And it was like the most immaculate coffee I got in my life, and it kind of hurt. I'm still recovering. But there is like a company that is like has like a mushroom something, I don't know. They're like drinks to like kind of like bring you down, and I feel
Yeah.
like there's such a huge market for this company to get a bunch of comic book people to drink this like anti-coffee, uh because it is a lot. I've had to regulate my drinking of coffee, and I love coffee. I think what's gonna save the world is if when climate change gets so bad that coffee is impacted, that's what's going to be the thing.
Oh yeah, people will start making changes
For
immediately.
sure. Like people will die, cities will be like uninhabitable, but the moment the cocoa bean is not, like, that's what's going to be the thing.
Yeah, protect the coffee bean.
Yeah.
Save the bees. We need them for everything.
I don't drink coffee, but I'm pretty sure I'm keeping Baja Blast in business.
Oh my gosh. Please drinks. I hope you're drinking water. Super deep.
I am.
Okay.
I do a little bit of everything. I love a good coffee joint combo, that's the perfect breakfast for me. I used to not be a coffee drinker. I used to be very caffeine sensitive, and then one day I got old, and then I can't live without it. It just switched for me one day. It just no longer, I no longer get jitters from it. Now it almost does nothing. But I gotta do a pot in the morning. And I'm also like a coffee nerd. I used to be a barista. I was a barista for several years, so I'm very particular about my coffee and how I make it and how I put it together, because I try to make that fun for myself too. Like that's sort of like my morning ritual is making my coffee, getting set up,
Yeah.
going to work,
Yep.
switching my brain over, like not, and I'm not super good at this. I don't think anybody is, but like trying, especially when I know I'm gonna have a creative day, like don't look at your phone. That's gonna, it doesn't even matter whether it's gonna be a piece of news you're like, that's a bummer. You're gonna find out a friend's sick, or you're gonna see something that you don't like, or something from somebody you don't like, or just something that's gonna hit your heart and you like need to guard that in order to be able to put out good work. It's like best not to feed that any sort of like outside influence, and just like have your ritual, and then and like, so that's like more my thing, where like I know a lot of people are like, Bianca's a terrible texter. Like, it's because I'm working. Because if I look at my phone, then
It's
then I'm in it, and then I'm like, oh no, I was supposed to be doing all these things, and it's now 6 hours later, and I've been looking at. I forgot to text you back, but now I'm looking at memes. Like I need to not look at it. It's a terrible device. I really kind of want to get back to like a landline, to like right
Yeah.
like Steenz loves to send letters. Like I'm really into that. Like I'm really into, if you love me, send me some snail mail, but don't expect to have my attention all the time on my phone, because like I need to. ADHD is just like, I cannot see it. Don't let me see it.
I feel you. And that's really funny that you talk about me writing you a letter because I just finished writing you a letter.
Yeah.
I do like the idea that you're like feather quill nature.
Yeah,
Here's
that's exactly
Bianca.
it. I do write all my letters in cursive too. So
I've been trying to get back to cursive.
let's go. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Reading cursive, we're getting it's great. Okay.
Landlines. Yeah.
Landlines, we love to see it.
Newspapers.
Newspapers. Let's bring it back, guys.
Bring it back. Roll it back.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to this panel. This was awesome. You know, I think there needs to be so much more discussion about these kinds of industries. And I'm thrilled that you were all so happy to give up, 2 hours of your day to chat with me about it. So thank you
This
so
is fun.
much.
Thank you for
And
having me.
let's give a round of applause for everybody. Yeah. And then if you'd like, you can see the class as they clap for you. Yay, thank you. Thank you to everybody who is on our live stream as well. We appreciate your questions. And we'll see you next time. Not next week. We're on summer break. 2 weeks from now. We'll be back. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.